NATO just did something unprecedented. It invited 3 Pacific nations to its summit as partners, and China immediately understood what this means. The world's most powerful military alliance is no longer confined to the Atlantic. Japan, South Korea, and Australia aren't NATO members, but they're being integrated into NATO operations, standards, and strategy in ways that transform the entire security architecture of the Indo-Pacific. This is the story of how 3 Asia-Pacific democracies became the alliance's Pacific firewall against Chinese expansion. Welcome to the Doctrine of War. Today we're breaking down the most significant shift in global alliance structures since the end of the Cold War: NATO's systematic integration of Japan, South Korea, and Australia into its operational framework. These 3 countries now participate in NATO summits, conduct joint exercises with NATO forces, adopt NATO weapons systems and interoperability standards, and coordinate on intelligence sharing and strategic planning. They're not treaty members, but they're functioning as de facto NATO partners in everything except name. And Beijing is watching this alliance converge with growing alarm. The Enhanced Opportunities Partnership, NATO's Pacific Gateway. Let's start with the mechanism that's making this happen, something called the Enhanced Opportunities Partnership Program. In 2014, NATO created this status specifically for countries outside the Euro-Atlantic area that share NATO's values and want to deepen cooperation with the alliance. Australia was the first to receive this designation, followed by Japan, South Korea, New Zealand, and later Sweden and Finland before they joined NATO proper. The fact that Sweden and Finland, both militarily capable, strategically important European nations, held Enhanced Opportunities Partner status before joining NATO should tell you everything about the significance of this designation. It's the waiting room for full membership, or in the case of geographically distant Pacific nations, it's the framework for maximum integration without formal membership. What does Enhanced Opportunities Partnership actually mean in practice? It means Australian, Japanese, and South Korean officers work at NATO headquarters in Brussels. It means their militaries participate in NATO exercises from the Baltic Sea to the Mediterranean. It means they contribute to NATO operations and missions when invited. It means they adopt NATO standardization agreements for everything from ammunition calibers to communications protocols. It means they have access to NATO intelligence assessments and participate in strategic planning discussions. This is integration at a level that most people don't realize exists. When NATO held its 2023 summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, the leaders of Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand attended, marking the 2nd consecutive year Pacific partners participated in the NATO summit. This isn't symbolic attendance. These leaders are in the room for strategic discussions about global security threats, including China's military expansion, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the connections between Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific security. The NATO 2022 Strategic Concept document explicitly mentions the Indo-Pacific for the first time in alliance history, stating that developments in the region can directly affect Euro-Atlantic security. This language is diplomatic code for China's actions threaten our interests, and we're going to do something about it. The document specifically names China as a challenge to NATO's interests, values, and security, an unprecedented escalation in NATO-China tensions. For Australia, Japan, and South Korea, this NATO integration serves multiple strategic purposes. First, it provides access to the most sophisticated military alliance in human history with combined defense spending exceeding $1 trillion annually. Second, it signals to China that aggression against any of these countries would trigger responses not just from the United States, but potentially from the entire Western alliance system. Third, it creates interoperability that allows their forces to operate seamlessly with NATO militaries in any contingency. Let's break down what each country brings to this partnership and why NATO values their participation. Australia contributes geographic positioning, intelligence capabilities through Five Eyes, expeditionary military forces with extensive combat experience, and a willingness to deploy globally in support of alliance objectives. Australian forces fought in Afghanistan alongside NATO troops for 2 decades, demonstrating commitment that goes beyond regional interests. If you're beginning to understand why NATO's Pacific partnerships represent a fundamental shift in global security architecture, hit that like button and subscribe to Doctrine of War. We're tracking alliance politics reshaping the 21st century, and your support keeps this analysis coming. Japan brings the 3rd largest economy in the world, one of the most technologically advanced militaries in Asia, and a geographic position that's absolutely critical for any Taiwan contingency. The Japan Self-Defense Forces operate advanced destroyers with Aegis ballistic missile defense systems, F-35 stealth fighters, and a submarine fleet that's among the quietest in the world. Japanese forces train constantly with American forces and increasingly with Australian and European militaries. Japan is also remilitarizing in response to Chinese and North Korean threats. Tokyo announced a doubling of defense spending to 2% of GDP by 2027, bringing Japanese military expenditure to roughly $80 billion annually. South Korea contributes some of the most capable ground forces in the world, a defense industry that's becoming a global powerhouse, and experience with constant military readiness against an existential threat. The Republic of Korea Armed Forces maintain 500,000 active personnel with another 3 million reservists. They operate advanced K-2 tanks, K-9 self-propelled howitzers, the same systems Australia is buying, and indigenous weapon systems that are being exported worldwide. Korean defense companies like Hanwha and Korea Aerospace Industries are becoming preferred suppliers for countries looking to diversify away from American and European manufacturers. The interoperability dimension is crucial. All three countries operate American weapons systems as their core capabilities: F-35 fighters, Aegis destroyers, advanced submarines, and precision-guided munitions. This means their forces can integrate into American-led coalitions with minimal friction. But increasingly, they're also adopting NATO standards that enable them to work with European militaries. Australia's upcoming Hunter-class frigates use British and Australian design with American combat systems and European sensors, a perfect example of transatlantic and Indo-Pacific integration. NATO exercises now routinely include Pacific partners. RIMPAC, the massive biennial naval exercise in the Pacific, includes NATO countries like Canada, France, and Germany operating alongside Japan, South Korea, and Australia. NATO's European exercises increasingly include observers or participants from Pacific partners learning NATO tactics and procedures. This cross-fertilization of military knowledge and operational experience creates a truly global alliance network. Intelligence sharing is perhaps most significant. Through various bilateral and multilateral arrangements, Australia, Japan, and South Korea have access to NATO intelligence on threats ranging from Russian military capabilities to Chinese cyber operations to North Korean weapons development. This intelligence flows in both directions. NATO benefits enormously from Japanese and Australian intelligence on Chinese military activities, Korean insights into North Korean capabilities, and the regional expertise these countries provide. Strategic signaling to China is deliberate and unmistakable. When NATO leaders meet with Australian, Japanese, and South Korean counterparts at NATO summits, Beijing sees an anti-China coalition forming. When Australian troops train with NATO forces in Europe while European forces deploy to the Indo-Pacific, Beijing sees a global alliance coordinating against Chinese interests. When all three Pacific partners adopt NATO standards and deepen military ties with European countries, Beijing sees the containment strategy it fears most taking shape. Chinese state media regularly denounces NATO's Indo-Pacific engagement as Cold War thinking and accuses the alliance of trying to create an Asia-Pacific NATO to contain China. These accusations are revealing. China clearly perceives NATO's Pacific partnerships as a serious threat to its strategic objectives. Chinese military analysts write papers about NATO encirclement and the need to prevent further alliance expansion. This isn't paranoia. It's a rational assessment of how NATO integration constrains Chinese freedom of action. The operational reality: three militaries becoming one alliance network. Now let's examine the concrete ways that Japan, South Korea, and Australia are integrating into NATO's operational framework and what this means for future conflicts. This isn't theoretical cooperation. This is practical military integration happening right now that's transforming how these countries fight and how NATO projects power globally. Start with weapons systems and procurement. The F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program is the ultimate expression of alliance integration. 9 NATO countries plus Australia, Japan, and South Korea all operating the same fifth-generation stealth fighter with shared training, maintenance, and operational concepts. When an Australian F-35 pilot needs to coordinate with a Norwegian F-35 pilot, they speak the same tactical language, use the same systems, and can share targeting data seamlessly. This is interoperability at the highest level. But it goes deeper. Australia's acquisition of Korean K-9 howitzers and K-2 tanks creates interoperability between Australian and Korean forces that mirrors NATO standardization. Both countries can share ammunition, spares, and maintenance expertise. When Polish forces also operate K-9 howitzers, Poland bought hundreds of them, you suddenly have Australian, Korean, and Polish artillery that can operate together using common systems. That's a Pacific to Europe integration that didn't exist 5 years ago. The naval dimension is equally significant. Australia, Japan, and South Korea all operate Aegis-equipped destroyers with ballistic missile defense capabilities, the same systems used by American and several European NATO navies. These ships can link their radars and fire control systems through data links, creating a networked air defense umbrella that covers thousands of square kilometers. In a Taiwan scenario, Japanese, Australian, Korean, and American Aegis ships could create an integrated missile defense network that would be extraordinarily difficult for Chinese missiles to penetrate. Submarine cooperation is more secretive but equally important. Australia's upcoming nuclear-powered submarines under Aegis will make Australian boats interoperable with American and British submarines at the deepest level. Japan operates one of the world's finest conventional submarine fleets with boats that are remarkably quiet and capable. South Korea is developing its own submarine capabilities, including plans for nuclear-powered boats. All three countries coordinate on anti-submarine warfare, sharing acoustic data, operating areas, and tactical procedures. Cyber and space domains represent new frontiers for cooperation. NATO has declared cyber and space to be operational domains alongside land, sea, and air. Australia's signals intelligence capabilities through the Five Eyes Alliance give NATO access to Chinese cyber activities and space-based intelligence that European countries cannot independently collect. Japanese expertise in cybersecurity and space technology complements NATO capabilities. Korean experience defending against North Korean cyber attacks provides valuable lessons for NATO countries facing Russian and Chinese cyber threats. The logistics and sustainment integration is less glamorous but strategically vital. Modern warfare consumes enormous quantities of fuel, ammunition, spare parts, and supplies. NATO has spent decades building interoperable logistics systems so that a German mechanized brigade can be supplied by American logistics units using standardized fuel, ammunition, and parts. Australia, Japan, and South Korea are being integrated into this system through acquisition and support agreements, standardization of supply chains, and joint logistics planning. This means that in a major Indo-Pacific conflict, NATO countries could surge logistics support to Pacific partners using established supply chains and procedures. European ammunition manufacturers could supply Australian and Korean artillery using NATO standard rounds. American fuel supplies could support Japanese and Australian naval operations using common refueling procedures. This logistics integration is what allows sustained combat operations rather than just initial engagements. The command and control architecture is being harmonized through regular exercises and staff exchanges. Australian officers serve at U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Headquarters. Japanese and Korean officers participate in multinational planning exercises. NATO officers increasingly deploy to the Indo-Pacific for staff exchanges and training. This creates personal relationships and shared understanding of operating procedures that prove invaluable during crises when rapid coordination is essential. Consider how this would work in a Taiwan contingency. Chinese forces invade Taiwan. The United States responds with carrier strike groups and air power. Japan activates its self-defense forces to defend Japanese territory and support U.S. operations. Australia deploys submarines and naval forces to threaten Chinese sea lanes. South Korea provides logistics support and potentially combat forces. And because all these forces train together, use compatible systems, and share intelligence through NATO-linked networks, they can coordinate operations with a level of sophistication that China cannot match with its more isolated military structure. European NATO countries would also contribute, not necessarily by deploying combat forces to the Western Pacific, though some might, but by providing logistics support, intelligence sharing, cyber operations, and potentially opening second fronts that divert Chinese attention and resources. French naval forces might operate from New Caledonia. British forces might deploy from Singapore. German surveillance aircraft might operate from Japan. The geographic reach of NATO suddenly becomes a global problem for China. The economic dimension amplifies military cooperation. Japan, South Korea, and Australia are all members of various economic partnerships that exclude China or limit Chinese influence. The Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, and bilateral trade agreements create economic networks that parallel security relationships. This economic coordination allows these countries to use trade and investment as strategic tools to counter Chinese economic coercion. The defense-industrial cooperation is accelerating. Korean defense companies are exporting weapons to Poland and other NATO countries. Australian defense companies are partnering with European firms on projects like the Hunter-class frigate. Japanese companies are exploring defense exports after decades of restrictions. This creates industrial networks where NATO and Pacific partners collaborate on weapons development, share technology, and build redundant production capacity that's resilient to Chinese pressure. The strategic messaging is synchronized in ways that indicate coordinated policy. When Australia takes a hard line on Chinese interference, Japan and South Korea echo similar concerns. When NATO releases statements criticizing Chinese military activities, Australia, Japan, and South Korea issue parallel statements. When one country restricts Chinese technology companies like Huawei, others follow. This isn't coincidence, it's policy coordination that multiplies the impact of individual actions. Integrating training and education creates lasting bonds. Australian officers attend war colleges in the United States alongside NATO officers. Japanese and Korean officers participate in NATO education programs. Pacific and NATO military personnel serve together in training schools, operational headquarters, and diplomatic postings. These relationships build trust and understanding that transcend formal agreements. China has responded to this alliance convergence with increasingly aggressive behavior. Chinese military aircraft probe Japanese and Korean air defense identification zones. Chinese Coast Guard vessels harass Philippine and Japanese ships. Chinese hackers target Australian government and business networks. This aggression paradoxically strengthens the NATO-Pacific partnership by validating the threat assessment and demonstrating the need for collective security. The public messaging from NATO and Pacific partners increasingly emphasizes shared values: democracy, rule of law, human rights, and free trade. This framing positions the NATO-Pacific partnership as values-based rather than purely anti-China, though the practical effect is the same. Countries that share democratic governance and open societies have common interests in resisting authoritarian expansion, whether from China, Russia, or other actors. The Ukraine conflict has accelerated this convergence. When Russia invaded Ukraine, NATO countries imposed sanctions and provided military assistance. Australia, Japan, and South Korea joined these sanctions and provided their own assistance, demonstrating solidarity with European security concerns even though Ukraine is geographically distant. This established a precedent for European countries to reciprocate in Indo-Pacific contingencies. If Pacific partners support European security, European countries should support Indo-Pacific security. The practical expression of this reciprocity is visible in increased European naval deployments to the Indo-Pacific. British aircraft carriers conduct exercises in the Philippine Sea. French frigates patrol the South China Sea. German warships transit the Taiwan Strait. These deployments signal that Indo-Pacific security matters to European NATO members and that they're willing to contribute forces to maintain stability in the region. The air domain is seeing similar integration. NATO air forces regularly deploy to the Indo-Pacific for exercises and training. American bombers operating from Guam conduct missions with Australian, Japanese, and Korean fighters. European tanker aircraft support long-range deployments, extending the operational reach of Pacific partners. This creates a truly global air power network where forces can operate across hemispheres with allied support. The missile defense integration is particularly significant given Chinese and North Korean ballistic missile threats. Japan's Aegis ships, Korean PAC-3 batteries, and Australian air defense systems can all link into the broader missile defense architecture that NATO has developed. This creates layered defenses that are far more effective than isolated national systems. Information sharing allows earlier warning and more effective intercepts. The Special Operations Forces cooperation is largely classified but known to be extensive. Australian SAS, Japanese Special Forces Group, and Korean Special Warfare Command all maintain close relationships with American Special Operations Forces and increasingly with European counterparts. These elite units conduct joint training, share intelligence, and coordinate on counterterrorism and special reconnaissance missions. Maritime domain awareness is being revolutionized through information sharing. When Japanese surveillance aircraft detect Chinese vessels, that information flows to Australian and American forces. When Korean radars track North Korean activities, that data is shared through alliance networks. When Australian signals intelligence picks up communications, allied forces benefit from the intelligence. This creates a persistent surveillance network that's far more comprehensive than any single nation could maintain. The end result of all this integration is that Japan, South Korea, and Australia are becoming functional members of NATO's strategic framework without formally joining the alliance. They participate in NATO exercises, adopt NATO standards, share NATO intelligence, and coordinate with NATO on strategic planning. In any major conflict involving one of these countries, NATO's involvement, directly or indirectly, is increasingly likely. For China, this represents the nightmare scenario that Chinese strategists have warned for years. The containment that China feared during the Cold War is being reconstructed in modern form, with NATO serving as the institutional framework for a global coalition of democracies aligned against Chinese expansion. Every step toward deeper NATO-Pacific integration narrows China's strategic options and raises the costs of aggressive action. The geographic implications are profound. NATO was designed to defend Western Europe from Soviet attack. Now it's evolving into a global alliance capable of operating across multiple theaters simultaneously. If China threatens Taiwan, it faces not just American forces but potentially Japanese, Korean, and Australian forces using NATO-compatible systems with support from European NATO members. This multi-theater, multi-domain threat is exactly what Chinese military planners most fear. The timeline matters enormously. This integration is happening now, in the 2020s, at the exact moment when tensions over Taiwan are highest and when China is attempting to establish regional dominance before the window closes. Every year that passes without conflict allows NATO-Pacific integration to deepen, making Chinese military action more risky and less likely to succeed. This is deterrence through alliance, making aggression so costly that it becomes unthinkable. Australia, Japan, and South Korea aren't NATO members, but they're the next best thing. Enhanced opportunities partners fully integrated into NATO operations, standards, and strategy. They're NATO's Pacific Trio, three democracies that extend the alliance's reach from the North Atlantic to the Indo-Pacific and create a global security architecture that can contain Chinese ambitions. The cork in China's bottle isn't just Australia. It's Australia working with Japan and South Korea under NATO's operational umbrella with the full backing of the Western Alliance. That's a force multiplier that transforms regional security and ensures that Chinese aggression would face not isolated resistance but coordinated, overwhelming response from the world's most powerful coalition of democracies. NATO is no longer a North Atlantic alliance. It's becoming a global security architecture with Pacific anchors that are as important as European members. And China is discovering that breaking through this alliance network is far harder than breaking through the first island chain alone. Thanks for watching Doctrine of War. If this breakdown of NATO's Pacific transformation was valuable, subscribe to the channel and smash that notification bell for more deep dives into alliance politics and military strategy. Drop your thoughts in the comments as NATO-Pacific integration evolves from here. Stay informed, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one.